But look, I
Exactly.
gotta go, guys. So I'm
Just
gonna leave you guys. But I've got to rush off. But thanks
no
for
worries,
coming on.
Ben. Have fun,
You've
my man.
killed Ben. How
He's
dare
killing Ben
you?
now. Don't pull your
Kill him,
hamstring.
Ben.
But I was going to say on that, the thing is, what I think you are seeing, and like because people are asking Conte to adapt and Jose to adapt and change and this, that, and the other. And I think what you're seeing is managers, if they're not getting the help from the board, I think what you're seeing is them less inclined to adapt. I think if the board helps them out more, they'll be more inclined to adapt. But the reason why they're less inclined to adapt because they're going, I've got to make this so glaringly obvious that they get this done. And that's where I think the problem is, Brains. I do agree
Yeah,
with
no,
you,
I know that. Yeah,
but
that doesn't
if
make
a
sense.
manager is constantly being railroaded, he's not going to sit there. I'm going to that because then once you do that, the board prove that they're right to a degree, and then all of a sudden they start taking more and more and more shortcuts.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but also
yeah.
he's come up. The way he's been playing, the way he plays, has got him to the situation where he's managing in the Premier League at the moment.
That's
Right,
his
he's at a
brand.
massive
That's
club.
his brand.
It's not just about his brand, but that's the way that he has kind of made his managerial career because he believes in his way of playing. He believes
Yeah,
that's what can work. And so the first sign of trouble, if he's like adapt, just come up with some magical formation to win every single game,
yeah, it's
right? But
true.
with all these problems, then what? How much did he truly believe in his way of playing? And he has made tweaks. This is not a guy who's just playing the same way every time. He has made tactical tweaks. I've seen there's clear evidence that he's adjusted little things while still having that
Eventually,
philosophy
Sim.
of
Eventually,
no,
he
he
has.
has throughout the whole season. Throughout the whole season, he has. Yeah, I know it was this is the first time he changed formation, but he has been making to the fullbacks, been making tweaks to the forward players. He's been
Even
making
last
tweaks
season, even
all
like at the end of last
season.
season, he started to make changes. But it's just that people were calling for the changes earlier, and then eventually did it. Like eventually tried Van de Ven as a fullback, and it's like Jesus Christ, how good is he as a fullback?
Yeah, he's been brilliant, and I think sometimes that's the nature of football. Gareth Bale didn't get a look in up until Benoit Suakota got injured, then became the
Yeah,
best left winger in European football. That is sometimes football. I'm not gonna always hammer Ange for it for not always figuring out. This is how football teams work. You find internal solutions. Sometimes it just happens that solution comes around. You try Decky midfield and he's amazing. Sometimes that is a solution you find. Look at Liverpool with Gravenberch. They were desperate for a number six. Everyone's saying if they don't get number six, they might fall out of the top four. People were saying at the beginning of the season. They didn't go buy one. They didn't get Zubimendi, and they just found this internal solution in Gravenberch, and they've made him into an incredible player. Sometimes that happens, right? And
good
obviously,
management, that.
Ange, huh?
But they've
That's
got
good
everything else
management.
settled around that, so you
That's
have
good
time to
management,
start to
100%. And he's done that with sometimes. But this situation, right, we're hammering him for making mistakes and not doing the right thing when we have 11, 12 players out. Like, he's obviously, it's a crisis point. He's trying his best to try and find situations. He's trying to adjust things. But essentially, when you're in the Premier League, when in this specific season, especially when all the middle teams seem to have really improved and upped their game and they all seem very, very settled, and we're having 12 players out and very crucial players, and a lot of them are in the same position. I think any squad, it's going to take its toll. It's going to take a strain on any team that happens in the Premier League. And of course, 7 wins, 7 losses in 10 is horrific form, and you'd like to think he can get better out of it. But you got to remember, we're playing in all these different competitions. We're playing every 3 days, and he has gotten big performances out of this team in the Liverpool and the Carabao Cup. He's gotten over the line against Man United as well. He's when there have been big moments, he's pulled big performances out of this team. But ask him to do it every 3 days when we're playing league game after league game, and we're getting teams coming up against us who have their own motivations. They got less problems and they're fresher than us, and it's very, very difficult. And he needs to ride out the storm. But I agree with Brains when he says, "Is he the manager?" If we are going to get pulled into a relegation battle, is he the guy to pull us out of that and to really get us the results we need, or is he going to play, keep not adjust, not do what it needs to be done to get yourself out of a situation like that?
Yeah.
That's a big, big question mark. And I've always said, I do genuinely believe, and I stick to that. If we get out of this situation, we do get to have players back, and the injuries settle down, and we have more players available. I do think results will start to turn. And I do think we will get ourselves out of the situation. But the fact of the matter is,
Sam, how can you see us getting? This is the thing
just
that blows my mind. How can you? I'm genuinely interested because I want to believe in what you say next. But how can you see us get out of this situation? This is the fascinating thing for me. How do you see it?
That's the problem at the moment. I'm not sure if that's the issue. That's the issue. Are we going to come out of that situation? Because we keep saying once we get players back at the end of January, we're going to get players back. Blah blah blah. We'll get players. We'll get players back. But along the way, we keep picking up more and more injuries. And
this is what my big problem with.
That's the thing. And so it keeps getting delayed. And are we ever going to get out of the situation?
That's why I'm saying
the problem.
I can't see us not losing Kulu. I can't believe Kulu, and all praise to Kulu for how well he maintains his body and the hyperbaric chambers and the ice, and I like, it's amazing. But that can only go for so long. The man is being run because this whole thing, he did it to himself. He almost kind of suffered from the angism of saying like, oh, I'll run all day. You know what I mean? He was like kind of bragging about like how amazing he and strong his body is. I'm sorry, but that is only going to last so long. It's a diminishing returns game when you're talking about fitness and 3 games a week. And I just think that you could mitigate. Like, look, and it's as simple as when Ange Ball works at its best, Maddison was so unbelievably core to it. When Maddison and Son play together in games, Son all of a sudden does look a little bit better again. He seems to kind of know how Maddison's going to put the ball through. He just seems to have a bit of a thing with him, right? Partnerships. Football's about partnerships, right? But you can't run Kulu dead, right? So I think he's always going to either have to have given Maddison the start and play him 60, or Kulu the start and play him 60. But so, because say if you play one day, you play 60 minutes, and then
but then you're playing. But then the problem is, in that scenario, you're playing Brennan every game. In that, if you're just rotating Maddison and you can't do that because he's picked up an injury.
This is what I'm saying. I totally understand that these options are shit. Right?
But I'm saying, no, it's not about options. You can't just say, I'm just going to rotate Maddison Kulu, because then Brennan's playing every single game and then he's going to get injured.
It's also only an option if they're having an impact on games of football. Let's be brutally honest. Maddison has
you could put Mikey Moore and you could have been using Mikey Moore. You can play.
Yeah, but he's been out. He's a 17-year-old kid. You got to protect him as well.
I think you can put Bergvall on the right of the wing, because I think he's a better dribbler and stronger player than most players. I think you could have even used Jed Spence if you didn't want to rotate these other positions. I'm saying you have to be a little bit inventive and try get, like, early on in the season. I think you maybe could have used Kulu all season just as a rotation with Solanke, and I get that Solanke and Kulu work really well together. So it is about seeing who's your best partnerships and seeing when they have this 60-30 everywhere. Because if you play 61 game and 30 the next game, that's 90 across 2 games. If you play 90 and then 90, that's 180 minutes and more across 2 games. It just can't. I'm sorry, but you can't play footballers like that. Not in this situation. So we are only going to keep getting more injuries because he will never ever rest Kulu, and it's a credit to how Kulu is so much willing to run. But even just as everyone was starting to say, "Oh, Kulu's been our best players," and I'm talking about the TV Sky, and like, "Oh, they do little bits before games on, look how good this guy's numbers are." That's backdated, right? By the time they were doing that, I was already seeing Kulu fall off a cliff. Couldn't run, couldn't hold the ball up. Every time the ball hits his leg, bounces off, getting easily pushed off the ball. Every time he gets it at the halfway line, he loses it. Like, it was already looking so bad. And Kulu's performance against Liverpool might have been the worst I've ever seen him play. Not even in a Spurs shirt, ever. When he was struggling to get back in at Juventus, like, ever. He could not do a single thing with the ball. He ended up hiding Kulu in the midfield. He put him like as one of the lower players. He told him not to press. He told him to drop off. He was hiding a player instead of just going, get off the pitch. Like, do you know what I'm saying? So it's like sometimes it looks insanity, and I get that he trusts him so much, but all you're doing is you're killing him. You need to give him a rest.
I agree with you.
But it's insane, you know.
I do agree with you. I fully understand what you're saying, you know. And look, the last thing you want to do is run Kulu into the ground, because once you run him into the ground, think how worse we're going to be going forward. In general, I fully agree with you. But here's the problem: he tried resting him against Maine, or not against Maine, against Hamwart. Gave Maddison, Johnson, players like that their opportunity, and this is where I think players have to take ownership as well. Someone like James Maddison. Now, look, it doesn't take a genius to work out. There's been a falling out.
He did play Werner as a striker, and Werner got in 2 or 3 times, and this
is the thing, you know, he's tried. The reason why, look, it doesn't take a genius to work out there's something going on between him and Madison, right? They had a falling out a long time ago, not picking him for the North London Derby, massive games. He's starting a lot of them on the bench. And in times like this, when you're not willing to throw a player in there to rest others, it shows that there has been a massive falling out there. So Madison needs to take a long, hard look at himself. Brennan Johnson, he's been devoid of a lot of quality. The only thing the guy can do is finish off other people's moves. Can't create any, can't hold up the ball and stuff like that. So much lacking to his game. He's spending a lot of time on the bench. Timo Werner, anytime he's tried to bring him in and rest other people, he's let him down. And this goes back to my point of building a proper squad, When he is turning to these players, they're letting him down. They have to take ownership. Quite frank, if I'm Madison, I'm being rolled out for that interview after. I'm embarrassed. I'm sitting here watching my players pick up injuries, run themselves into the ground while I'm sitting on the bench having a war with Postecoglou. It's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing. What really concerned me was after the Everton game, I sat there and I watched Sky Sports and I watched them do the Man United interviews and then do the Tottenham interviews back to back. Amram sat there with fight, looking at the press, looking at them in the eyes, stuff like that. Bruno Fernandes, I'm not here to lose games. We need to wake up, this, that, and the other. I look at the Tottenham interviews. Ange mumbling, looking down, no confidence in him. I look at James Madison mumbling, looking down, no confidence. Don't even look like we have to fight to get out of this. And that's what really concerned me when I seen them player manager interview and player manager interview back to back. Let's not forget Bruno Fernandes, Man United's captain. James Madison is also in the leadership group at Tottenham Hotspur. And that's what really sort of concerns me. And this is where I think Postecoglou got it wrong when he picked that leadership group in the first place. I was I did come out and I said, I'm not sure about this leadership group. I think if times get tough, they will not stand up. Son is just a nice guy, but he doesn't have the ability to pin someone up by the scruff of the neck if they back chat Postecoglou or back chat another player, which I'm sorry, you need an dressing room. You're talking about elite level sports. People can get carried away. Sometimes you need a little reality check. If Son's not prepared to do it, then you need someone like Madison to do it. Well, Madison's having a falling out with Postecoglou, so he's hardly going to go around and keep people in check and have the fight to stave off this battle for Postecoglou, is he? So, and I think, Romero to a certain degree, fine, but he's injury prone. So, I think the leadership group, Vicario, another one entered into it, out. So I think the leadership group is all wrong. And I think if he really wants to stave off this and go forward, I think he really needs to change that very, very quickly. But the minute he does, you lose Son, you lose Madison, and you lose the rest of them players in the leadership group. So right now, he's up a creek without a paddle, no armbands, no floating devices. He better be a good swimmer.
But the thing is, we talk about, Ange's future and everything. But let's say we sack Ange tonight and Iraola comes in tomorrow. How much changes in the short term? How he's a manager, also has his philosophy. He also plays a high intensity football. He also plays the way you want. Are we going to ask him to Iraola to adapt immediately and never implement his style of play because we only have 11 players, so you can't implement it if you come here right now? And if we're saying, well, if Iraola comes, he can only really implement his style of play once players come back, then are we not just better off waiting for the players to come back for Ange? If you know what I'm talking about, if we're talking about sacking Ange right now because the results are what they are and the situation we're in, what kind of how much changes with a new manager right now if we sack him?
It all depends on whether the guy coming in goes, look, I've been making game plans against you for 2 seasons now, or he comes in and goes, look, you're easy to play against. Let's just, you make your teams easy to play against, so if he comes in and he knows that fundamental of make your team hard to beat, and if you're running everyone dead, he would come in and do that. That would be the first thing. The problem is like we're saying about Ange changing the formation. It doesn't have any time. So his fundamentals would all be in people management. It would all be like trying to get the squad, get the people together, go, look, we're going to anti-football. We're going to sit deep for a little while because we know that Spurs do have players who can break. That was always, for me, in the last 5 years, how good we would break and play through the lines and counterattack. And actually, a lot of the times this year, that's kind of what we've seen, is we're just really good when we counterattack. So maybe play into the strengths there. If I was coming in and I was Areola, I would just be for just to get you through this process. That's why managers like Deitch and all them come in. They just go, look, I'm just going to make this team unbeatable. I'm just going to get everyone behind the ball and get that mentality in their head in video, in like the room, not on the, you kind of don't have a lot of time to do it on the pitch, but it's that idea of everyone gets in line. James Lawrence Alcott broke down one of the goals, right? The first goal, I think, or this I think it was either the first or second goal we conceded, and he because he has a football, he plays a good level football. It was a mentality thing of why the goal was conceded. It was a positional thing, sure, but it was a mentality thing of players just not being alive and awake. And you see us, Pape will give away the ball, Bez will give away the ball in places which mentality-wise, a manager, that is his responsibility to say, no, you do not lose the ball there. Not 5 minutes before half-time. Not in the first half. You do not blind pass the ball into someone's running angle. Like, these are things that players are doing, which are kind of wacky, he's trying to give them license to be creative, right? But we lose goals that way. We're seeing it all the time now. That first goal came from Sarr giving the ball or losing the ball easily, and then bang, overload, and we lose the goal, right? So it's little things like that. If you are a manager who comes in, just has fundamentals and gets players down and say, look, this is what we don't do anymore. We don't make that pass. We don't play ourselves easily into corners where they can, recover the ball. You put Bergvall, he's so good at the six. We don't really want him there all the time because he's better than that, but you put him there. You must have him there, right? Because he's the only one who seems to be able to, like, push a guy off and turn, like what Bez did or what Bentancur did when he first came to the club. So there's little things like that of just like watching tape on Spurs and getting them a little bit stronger at the back, not thinking, not being held down by this, I must play front foot football. This is my brand. I must do go. Because that there, I'm sorry, but that style of football is the easiest style. Every time, like in our Sevens league right now, we play there's one team that's got two former Premier League players. One's a former Spurs player. And every time we play them, they batter everyone else with front foot domination of the ball. They're so good. They've got like Crystal Palace graduates in their team as well. And every time we play them, we beat them. Why? Because we don't want to play football that day. We go, now we're going to anti-football. We're going to sit back, everyone behind the ball. We got one fast player. We got everyone behind the ball. They commit in deep. We go long, bang. We beat them every time. So it's like, when you play that style of football, you become easy to beat. You become
but Brains, before Sunday, away from home, we'd conceded the least goals in the league away from home. So yeah, like how if we're the easiest team to play against and we're just so easy to score against? I know, don't get me wrong, since we've gotten these injuries at the back, our defense has been absolutely awful. But those numbers don't fit that narrative that we're just the easiest.
It does, because you're misunderstanding the words. Easy team to play against doesn't mean that you'll beat Spurs 5-0 every game. Doesn't mean that we will concede loads of goals. The easy is in get a goal against Spurs and try and sit back and see them try beat us. No. So that's why we're losing games 1-0, because that's the easy tactic. Just get a goal against Spurs and sit back. They will not break us down. You get 9 players around the box against us, we will not break that down.
Yeah, but that always happens early on when you got a manager trying to implement this kind of first of all, complete departure from Conte and Mourinho. Obviously, under Conte and Mourinho, we had historical problems of breaking down low blocks. Even when Kane and Son in the team, we would always obviously rely on counterattacks and stuff like that. Obviously, when you're a manager like Ange Postecoglou, you're completely going in a different direction, attacking style, right? We've seen that when it's swashbuckling, when teams are coming out at us, right, we can go toe to toe and play football with them. Obviously, the hardest thing to do is break down low block. Hence why Everton, got a clean sheet against Arsenal at the Emirates. They got a clean sheet. They drew against Man City, and they got a clean sheet against Chelsea as well at Goodison Park in all 3 in a row, because they knew keeping going to a low block is going to be the hardest way. And these are much better teams than us, and they also struggle against a low block. That's obviously the toughest thing to do. You need the quality. That's where the quality gets implemented in the team. That comes with time. If we're relying on younger players and we're building a squad, that's always going to come with time. So obviously that's what we're going to struggle with. But actually, from what I was seeing at the beginning of the season, and the underlying numbers definitely back it up, is that we were conceding not many chances. And yes, we were being punished sometimes with the chances we were conceding, but not many chances. We were creating a lot more chances in the opposition.
How much of that turn if one unbelievable goalkeeper? How many saves would Vicario make per game?
I'm saying that was, yeah, last season, I agree, the balance wasn't quite right. But this season, actually, before this injury crisis, it wasn't actually all down to Vicario. I actually thought defensively, the numbers were there. The shots on target against us were one of the lowest in the league. The expected goals against us one of the lowest in the league. Vicario was making some of the least saves in the league as well. The defensive numbers were not bad, actually. And ever since we've had this unbelievable crisis, we've obviously dropped off a cliff, and now we're very, very easy to play against and very easy to score against, essentially, and very easy to create chances.
Because now it's hard to get fullbacks to believe in inverting and going into the eights and doing all that kind of stuff, which is amazing if you're playing a team who's like going to come at you and, you know, like you're going to have a back and forth game. But when you're playing now where players don't want to run, players don't want to, you know, like they're hanging on.
I don't say don't want to, they can't. It's just they're playing every year.
They're hanging on for dear life. You watch Porro, I can see every time he gets the ball, he just turns and looks up to hit a long ball because he doesn't want to run. You can see how much he's kind of like in pain and hanging on in games. It's like, so that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why 2 months ago, I was seeing we were going to end up in this. And then from this situation, that's why you need managers who come in and can bring everyone together. That's why bringing Areola in right now doesn't really do anything, because it's not the style of play that can survive a relegation battle. So this is where you kind of come to like, well, do you keep asking Ange to change by saying, look, find a way to rotate, you know, you find a way of not inverting wing backs so you get a flat back four, you get more stability, find a way of like just not going front foot all the time, because, you know, when you see us press 10 minutes, we might have it. Or some point in the game, we do the press for 5-10 minutes and we look good again for a brief second. That's all we've got on it, because they can't do it. Pressing is the most physically draining stuff. You're constantly sprinting. You kill players like Dom Solanke. You know, it's just, you can't do it. You know, so like, it's just not a system that works anymore for this problem. And it could have been mitigated 2 or 3 months ago. And what I was seeing at the start of the season, and when injuries started coming off, and like I was saying, you know, you lost me when he did that to Romero and VDV, because then I was going, okay, wow, now we are in a shitstorm. Now it's only going to get worse. So we're only headed down. So I'm actually, this is what I was saying to you, is like, there's a little bit of change in my opinion here, is that now I'm almost at the point where now it's too far gone. Like just bringing a Deitchen or someone to relegate, to kind of almost mentally relegate yourself into the situation you're going, we are in a fight. That will only break the spirit even further. If you're going to tell these players, like, you're in a relegation battle now. Like, now we're bringing this manager in because you're all so shit, you can't play front foot football anymore. Like, now we're going to get you just playing anti-football. That's only going to kill them even more. You know, so you're almost, so now I'm kind of going, I think you need to let them see it through. I don't think there's a way out now. The way out was 2 months ago, 3 months ago. If you were going to change him, that's when the way out was. Not now. Now you got to hope he can get through this. And if he can get through it, then maybe there's a turnaround. But it's so far gone now that it's just, you kill us either way. You know what I mean?
Brains, look into the camera and say, I am now Anjin. That'll be great.
I am now. There is no other alternative. It's that bad. You may as well, like what I'm saying about the making of a man is how he handles adversity. You may as well see if he's going to handle this. This is his moment, you know?
Well, they're never going to sack him in January anyway. When you're talking about trying to get players to sign for a football club, who's going to sign for a football club when you don't know what manager you're going to be playing for? You know, so they're never going to
sign
sack
for a
him
football club that's in a relegation battle.
David, let me ask you this. We've obviously, in my opinion, I think the season's been completely derailed by injuries, and that's why we're in the situation that we are in, because of the state of the squad. Obviously, other people disagree. Some people saying, you know, even before the injuries, we're still losing games, and it's not just because of injuries, or blah, blah, blah. For you, David, first of all, how much do you put of the situation we're in now, do you put down to injuries that we have? And the follow-up to that, how much of the injury situation do you put on Ange? What kind of, like, percentage-wise do you portion the blame for him?
Look, there's no doubts injuries derailed their season. It derailed last season. It derailed the season before that under Conte. It derails a lot of our seasons. For me, look, when I had the opinion I did, but go on last word on Spurs in the summer about the transfer window and foreseeing the problems. That's why I struggle to allocate a lot of it to Ange Postecoglou, because I could see us sleepwalking into this situation. I've seen us sleepwalking into this situation the minute the club decide to sell Harry Kane and go and start buying relegation fodder in here to replace him. I've seen us sleepwalking into it. Look, my opinion is, I think managers are probably only really 5-10% of the problem at Tottenham Hotspur. If you bring in a manager, it's up to you to back him. If you're in Europe and that's what you want every season as a chairman, it's up to you to deliver a squad to compete on all four fronts to be able to sustain that. And that's inherently the problem at Tottenham Hotspur. We're always leaving managers short. And then when things go wrong, we're looking at them going, adapt, make it work. Harry Potter, wave your wand, do something. The problem was manifested in the summer. We let him down in the summer, sleepwalking into this season. So I don't really blame Postecoglou for too much of it, to be honest. In terms of injuries, look, people can blame the system. Maybe there's some truth to it. But the reality is, when you go into a season off the back of what we did last season, where we're just playing Premier League football, into a season where you're gone deep in all the cups, you got European football, and you're trying to maintain a Premier League, it's double the workload, double the travelling, etc. You have to build a bigger squad. The only player we really gave him to add to that was Tom Solanke in the summer. So again, even down to the injury crisis, how much is it really on Ange Postecoglou when it happened under Conte as well? Derailing our seasons under Conte and that as well. So for me, again, I put it down to internal problems at the club. I put it down to a sporting director who does not know how to operate. There's a reason why Villa got rid of him and brought in Munchie, because he couldn't get the players in for Emery that Emery wanted. So they said, we'll get in Munchie. He's proven at Sevilla. He can do it. No problem. He's got connections in the games. So, for me, I'll put most of the problems on this football club. The reality is, Jose Mourinho left Tottenham Hotspur, despite fans saying he's outdated, he's too old, his methods don't work in modern day football. Everyone said clueless, negative, doesn't know how to adapt, etc., etc. He's now sitting there with Napoli going for a Serie A title. Nuno, again, fans lost patience with him even quicker after a few months. Look what he's doing now with Nottingham Forest. And I can guarantee you, Ange Postecoglou will go on and do well elsewhere as well. The problem is Tottenham Hotspur. And this is where I think, I get people have their problems with Postecoglou, but I think putting all the problems on Postecoglou, like we've done with Conte, Jose, and Nuno, I think all the problems are going to go out the door with them. Sadly mistaken, because if Jose was the problem, then why are we still in this situation? If Nuno was the problem, why are we still in this situation? If Conte was the problem, why are we still in this situation? So I don't think you can keep blaming managers at this football club. The reality is they've got a history of winning. Yes, Postecoglou, different level to Conte and Jose, but you have a history of winning. You have a history to prove it works. But then you come to Tottenham and all of a sudden we go, we know you're a winner and we're a loser. But we want you to adapt to our ways. And that's what we asked them to do. And that's where the problem goes. We sit here saying we want trophies and everything else. But then we go to you, adapt to our loser ways, please. It just doesn't make sense. If you're bringing in a guy that's been there and done it, it's up to you to follow his way. That's why you're bringing him in here. So for me, I don't really blame the manager for too much what's going on right now, Sim. I blame the football club. I blame Johan Lang, people like that had, plenty of opportunities in the summer to rectify it. Plenty of opportunities early in January to help alleviate this situation, even just temporary for this month. We haven't done it. So for me, I struggle to sit here and blame a lot of it on Postecoglou. His football will work if we give him the right players. However, where we're at now, I just think when I look at them interviews, when I look at the last three games, even when I look at Postecoglou, it was clear when we went 1-0 down, the back three wasn't working. We went 2-0 down, didn't change it. He waited till halftime to change it. It's too late. I almost feel like he's just sitting there going, sack me, I just want my paycheck, I want out of here. And I just feel like it just needs fresh ideas right now. Yeah, is it going to change anything? No, it's not. It's really not. But fresh ideas will stave off a relegation battle. So that's, I think, where I'm at with this situation right now. I feel so sorry for Postecoglou. I never wanted to be at this situation. I think Postecoglou, to a large degree, is a competent manager. But the reality is, if it's not working, it's just not working. And at some point, you've got to make the change. And I don't think it'll be this one. I think the fact that he got to the semi-final, I think they'll see that out because they sacked Jose Mourinho off poor league form. Fans went mad, even though there was a cup final to play for. If they do the same with Postecoglou with their chance going to Anfield, I think fans will also use that as a thing to bash him with. And let's be quite frank, you even look, well, where do we even go from here? The last three managers we've brought in, Jose Mourinho, Conte, and Postecoglou, they're all out of contract. We haven't had to pay a transfer fee. This notion that we're going to go after Thomas Frank, the guy at Fulham, Iriola, it's not going to happen. Daniel Levy is not going to pay a transfer fee to get a manager out of a club. So then you turn to the free market. Sean Dyche, Sam Allardyce, Gareth Southgate. Does any of them inspire people? I don't think so. So what's out there on the free market that where he doesn't have to pay a transfer fee, which he's not going to do when he's already trying to find money for January. So where do we even go from here? And that's my big concern. Even if you change manager, we're still going to be in this situation in 16 to 18 months' time because we failed him in windows where we could have aided them. It's that simple. So I don't even know where we go from here. I just think the big problem is we never replaced Kane, we never replaced Son. Every manager that came in here was able to depend on their professionalism, their training, implementing their messages behind the scenes in terms of getting players on board to a large degree and stuff. Even in games, depend on them to get us out of situations. We don't have that at this football club anymore. Even if you brought Iriola in, which I hear people compare, but the difference with Iriola and his injury crisis is they're playing every 6 days or every 7 days. They're playing once a week. So his players are fresh enough during the week. They can recover. We can't.
And also, they've only just hit, really. They've only really just hit at the beginning of January.
100%. But even if you look at it, our players are playing every 3 days. So there's not even a chance to give them a breather to a large degree. So even if he came here, he's going to suffer. He's not going to look as good as he has done at Bournemouth. But then you've also got you have to factor in, if you're a manager worth your sort, if you're a manager that's on the rise in the football, or you're gathering a reputation, why would you touch Tottenham Hotspur when you look at the way the last three, and now Postecoglou, which will be the last four, have left this club, and the way Spurs have made them look so incompetent? Why would you touch Tottenham? Let alone looking at the situation and going, well, I've 9-10 players out. What can I do here? So no manager's even going to sign on the dotted line unless they're looking for a massive payday. Or, quite frank, we take a gamble and they're looking for an opportunity that no other club has given them.
And you look at Amorim at the moment, he's coming to United mid-season and they've gotten worse, Man United, from when they were under Ten Hag. And that's because he's come in mid-season when they're playing every 3 days. He's had very little time on the training ground to implement his way of playing, and they don't have the players to play his way. Even though they've got a fully fit squad, they can't seem to adjust to his way of playing mid-season because it's all too much to take on when you're in the hustle and bustle of the Premier League. And I think that's even, look at that situation, that's probably a cautionary tale. I think I agree with you, David. I think any manager looking at this situation right now thinking, why would I join that mess right now? If I wait till the summer, that would be a better situation. I'm coming in, I'm going to be asked to turn their form around when they've got 12 injuries at the moment, and I'm going to be asked to basically be a miracle worker. And if I can't get more out of the players than Ange, then I'm going to be seen as a failure as well, and it could hurt my reputation. So I think it's a really tough sell for a manager to leave like a really good situation like Bournemouth challenging for top four and all these other things. But Gav, we've been back and forth on WhatsApp about this injury crisis and all this kind of stuff. And, I know you hold Ange responsible for a lot of the injuries, but in terms of, maybe his lack of rotation and stuff like that. But how much do you sympathise with him when it comes to it? How much is down to luck? How much of this injury crisis has been unavoidable? Or do you think, when you put a percentage of it, would you say over 50%, 60% is on Ange? Where do you land on that kind of spectrum?
There's no real luck in football. Like, bad luck is like one or two things, not a recurring situation. It's like, so I agree 100% that he's not given the players needed. The club knows that he had hamstring, like loads of injuries at Celtic. Like, it was a thing. So the club knows that about him. He knows that the way he plays and the training methods will cause hamstring injuries. Like, that's 100% fact, right? So they don't like, so again, it's complete, like, it's just all on, that is all on a club, right? But then when you do have fit players at the start of a season, or like even last season when the injury thing starts to happen, at some point he was asked by the media, who said, Mickey van de Ven has recurring injuries. Maybe there's some changes that you could make to kind of prevent. This was before the crisis really took off, right? This was just mostly about Mickey van de Ven being such a core player in the way he plays. The question was asked to him in one of the pressers, and he said, "If you're asking me if I'm going to change my ways, no." You know, and fair enough. And changing his ways is the idea of like rotating players, even if he doesn't want to and stuff. You know, so I just don't think there's any way of denying that the situation was bad and what he was given was bad, 100%. But the crisis is on him. The crisis is like just unwilling to rotate players. Yes, you don't have good players to rotate with. You could say that. That's what he would have said, you know, before. He would have loved to have come out and gone, everyone said Jed Spence was such a good player, but I didn't rate him, you know. But then he doesn't have that, because he did have to rotate with Jed Spence, and he's proven wrong. Jed Spence is a great player. So you can't have his style of play, his style of training, and stubbornness together with this club, because it is a absolute recipe for disaster. So it's like just the two worst things to go together have exploded in a crisis that unlike we've ever seen before.
But Gav, when you look at Van de Ven, this season, can I just interject? This season, Van de Ven, you look at him, how he's been managed. He has started one Europa League game this season.
Why did he start any?
Huh? Because at the moment, because Dragishin got sent off, so he had to come. So he had to start. So he has started. He
came on like
he has started one one Europa League game, and the only other game midweek he started was the game he got injured in, was the Man City game. So it's not as if he's been just played constantly every single week. He has had rest. He's only did start one Europa League game.
And then when he
I'm saying he's only started one Europa League games. It's not like he's been constantly played in all the Europa League games and he's just never had a break. He only started one. So
he played every Prem game with two recurring injuries after a surgery. So the scar tissue there, which is going to take about 6-7 months to get rid of scar tissue. And you have to be very careful with a player like that. You can't play them every single, even Prem game, even once a week. You can't play them every single game. But that's not the problem. Like, it's the point where he's coming back from, because the slide that damaged his leg, I don't even think he needed to do that slide. And he did the same. Obviously tore the scar tissue. But then at that point, then you've got a real situation, like how he was being with Richie. Oh, we've been very careful with him now. You should have been very careful with Van de Ven, who's the best player at the club. That's the guy you had to be careful of. That's the guy who's got a running style, who sprints with a big frame. That's the guy who, like, you almost, for me now, I think Van de Ven is gone as a player at this club. I think he's gone now. I don't think you recover him again. And that didn't have to happen. For me, I think Van de Ven is like, I think he's one of the best players we've ever seen at this club at that position. And it's, for me, I'm like eternally pissed that Ange wasn't given an adequate replacement for him. You've sticking by Ben Davies. Like, Ben Davies actually done all right, but it's not the frame. It's not the same type of guy you can use.
But okay, Gav, I take your point, but as much as I appreciate Van de Ven and as much as I love him as a player, that's no way to manage a settled back line, to have a player in your back line who has to come out every 3 games because you have to manage him. You have to have a player agreed, right? But then, okay, we have to realise that, and we have to plan adequate. And maybe we can't rely on Van de Ven, and is that on Ange though? The fact that we can't rely on him, did you know that? Is that the thing before we signed him? But
then we're always going to do this jumping from, well, the club let go of Ashley Phillips. And the club doesn't want to play Alfie Dart. It's like, no, that's a manager's job. Ange allowed Ashley Phillips to go.
But he's trying to create a settled backline. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to create a unit, right? And that's what the best teams do. You look at Arsenal, Saliba, Gabriel plays every game. You look at Liverpool, Van Dijk, Konate. Like, he's trying to create that solid thing. And if you've got a player like, if you're saying Van de Ven is like that, he's trying to get him to be part of that unit with Romero, a rock solid partnership. When they do play together, they can work really well together. But is that any way? how can you plan? Okay, we've got this amazing defender, but he can only play once every 2 weeks. Like he can't.
But this is the problem. Like Van Dijk gets injured and he's out for a whole season. Like clubs have to deal with the fact that you might have
and
to
that
lose
ruined their
players.
season. It ruined their
Yeah,
season.
it did. But then we might have to deal with the fact if this guy's got a contract for a certain amount of time at the start of the season, he had surgery, right? So you have to kind of go, we might not see this guy, especially how he wants to play and how Ange wants to play him. You might not see this guy for most of the season. That just might have to be a reality of it. Because the repercussions, for me, it's always the repercussions of what Ange doesn't want to do. I get that they're tough, but the repercussions are end game scenarios. If you don't rotate Reggie in for Udogie, then you lose Udogie and you can't afford that. If you don't have an adequate replacement for Van de Ven, then you lose him and you don't want to do that. So unfortunately, he's not ever had the chance to have a steady backline because you've got this amazing player. He's now got the injuries that are recurring. You've basically got assess on your own situation here. And if you play him more, you're going to exacerbate it. You know, as you play it less, you're not going to have a backline. It's a shit show. But then in the window, he goes, this is my second season. You either get me the players I need or I go. Like, you have to have some form of strength there. He can't just be a mouthpiece for the club going, no, that's what the press are they asking. They're like, do you think you got back? Yeah, I think I got back. It's like, you're just lying now. Every time you're just being a mouthpiece for the club. So what do you want? People like me are going to go, look, am I supposed to take this guy at his word? If I'm supposed to take him at his word, then he is a part of the problem. I don't think that I think he is just being a savior for the club. I think he realizes these are my employers. He's got a bit of kind of pride about it. And he's going, I'm not going to throw the club under the bus. But it's like, yeah, well, the other side of that is you are now under the bus. It can't be both.
But it has bought him this time, though, Brains. Yeah, like doing that has bought him the time that we're in now. You know, that the fact that things aren't really getting any better, the fact that he has constantly been out there saying, regardless whether it's been injuries, whether it's been, results, whether it's been transfers, etc., he's always come out and said, it's my job, it's my fault, I'll fix it, and by doing that, he has bought him this time now to fix it.
Yeah, but as soon as this is a crazy contradiction as well. If you watch any of his pressers, 1 minute he'll say one thing, about 3 seconds later he says another thing. So he'll come out and go, look, this is all on me, it's all on me, it's all on me. Like 5 minutes later, he'll say, well, it's not all about me, guys.
When does he say that? Then he'll go, he does say responsibility.
Say again?
When does he say it's not all on him?
In the same presser where he said, look, it's all on me, this is on me, this is on me. About a question later, when they were asking him about the situation you're now in, do you feel this makes your job tenable? He was like, oh God, it's not all about me. And I get that there's a flip in but what they're asking in both questions is the same thing. He's giving a different context to each answer. He's going, look, it's not all about me. But then at some point, you need to kind of be going, look, I've been thrown on the bus here. I've been telling you that we need something.
The minute he does that, he's gone though.
Well, then go out. I thought that Conte went out. I thought that was a really good way for Conte to go out because he's going, look, same owners all these years. Like,
but that doesn't help us. We're back in this situation again. The thing is, if Ange,
there's no way out of this, though, Sim. There's no way out.
You just need to give it time. That's the only way I can see out of it. Is the time
get us relegated.
It might do, but he might turn it around.
He might. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's glass half full. It's just what way you want to go. I'm now in your boat, but only because we didn't do what if there was any way to save the situation, it was earlier. It's too late now. It was like if he was going to be sacked, it had to be earlier. If you would have to have had a backup plan. He's not been, and so now you're going to have to see him pull the whole club out of the mud. And
but Gav, you say the way we play is going to cause injuries and all that kind of stuff. First of all, last season, I've looked back at that injury, the injury crisis we had last season. It was
Sim's found some sort of Hail Mary stat here.
It's not a Hail Mary. It's just I've just been looking into injury crisis last season. Van de Ven picked up a hamstring. Apart from that, the only other hamstring we had was right at the end of the season when a doggy picked one. I picked one up 5 games to go. So apart from that, all the other injuries we had were not muscle injuries, which I think you
Yeah.
can maybe put down to Ange. We had Perisic had an ACL during training. Maddison picked up an ankle injury during that Chelsea game after he picked up a knock. We had Lo Celso, Solomon picked up a bad injury, but he's always been injury prone. Lo Celso
was re-injured again.
Bentancur would come back from an ACL and then got injured by that Matty Cash challenge. Yeah. So, like, I think when people lump that injury crisis into the same one here, I think that might be unfair. You might be rewriting history a bit.
No, but that's not lumping that into this one. Those are different scenarios. All that you've
but people just blame Ange for all of them. People saying, "Oh, look, we're 2 injury crises in a row, and it's all on Ange." You know, it's no coincidence.
Injury situation was not on Ange. Like, there's very few. Unfortunately, one thing has happened which has now made a knock-on effect because it's happened to one of your most pivotal players. But last season did give you a little bit of experience that with Van de Ven out, you cannot play your system. Like, you have to come up with plan B. You cannot do it. With Romero out, you can, like, what's going to happen? You know, what is going to happen? So he would have come into this season going, look, well, I've got 2 key centre backs. He can't have the mentality of what he gave as an excuse. Like, how many clubs have more than 4 centre backs? I'm like, well, actually, Ange, you have a centre back who's actually a full back who we've been using as a centre back, who's been at the club for 10 years, who's old, who also might have an injury around the corner. You've got a centre back who is now injury prone, so you don't actually have 2 starting centre backs. You don't have 4 centre backs at the club. You have 2 fit centre backs and 2 potential issues. So that's why you need 6 centre backs. And so if that is keeping Ashley Phillips and Alfie Dorrington and bleeding them in and playing them so they get used to it, that's what you had to do at the start. Or you get big names, or you buy extra centre backs in the market, and we didn't do that. So yes, his legs were cut off at the very start of the season, but he allowed them to be cut off. Like, he sat there and said, come on, we're not going to get more than 4. God, who gets more than 4 centre backs? It's like, well, all right, well, you knew the situation.
But Brent, you can never plan for this many injuries, can you? You can't plan for 12 players out.
I think you probably know that your style of training and what you establish that style of training at the start of the season. You can't really.
Yeah, but you expect it to be manageable. You expect it to be manageable. Go on, David.
This style of training, I want to delve deeper into, because I don't understand what the problem is. I think we make too many excuses for hard work at Tottenham Hotspur. You know, under Conte, you know, where apparently they weren't training enough. You know, they didn't want to stand there and work on set pieces, work on throws, even though they're conceding goals from them week in, week out. They don't want to do it. Man United, whenever you hear about the class of 91 talk and stuff like that, all you keep hearing is our training was more intense than games on the weekend. It made the games on the weekend easier. So why do we keep making
different times?
No, but, you know, with more science and everything else, you think, you know, for me, I just think we make too much excuses about the training, you know, the intensity and stuff like that. At the end of the day, if it's good enough for a team that's gone on to win, you know, everything there is in European football, then why is it not good enough for Tottenham Hotspur? I just think we make too many excuses for these players not to work hard. At the end of the day, I think it should be, we are a club that want to win trophies. We are a fan base that wants to win trophies. We want every ounce of energy you have, because we are paying you 100 grand a week. You know, but as soon as the going gets tough, we give them excuses, and I don't understand it.
Yeah, no, and actually they have facilities there to really mitigate a lot of the issues. It's just they don't have, like we're saying, they don't have really experienced staff to put those facilities into play. They don't have a structure. For me, if you're playing 3 games a week, I'm sorry, but you actually don't have time to train. Like, you don't really have time other than like light footwork, rondos, a little bit here and there.
But that's what Ali Gold says. That's what they've been doing. They haven't been.
And I think that is true. But then what you do in the days off is you have like it's basically load management, and you kind of need leg work, because if you don't keep building the muscle, little tendons get loose. Because when you play, all you're doing is the muscle's actually losing water and losing strength. So you actually have to do leg day in the gym. So they have to do these things that are kind of like, then they just have to kind of, that's why they're in hyperbaric chambers, they're in the ice baths, like they're trying to mitigate. It's just, for me, it's a squad that's too short, too small, not ready for 3 games a week. You know, so it's not really the kind of, I don't think that and just kind of got them on the training field, right? Like laps, like I don't think it's that. I think it's the actual management of the load in the off 2 days maybe that you get, so that's where you kind of like you need top class physios to work with every single person's specific issue, and they don't have that. But then as a manager, that is still in the criteria of what your job is to oversee everything. And Ange is also
we don't have a manager at Tottenham though. We've a head coach, and that's the massive difference.
That's a big part of the problem.
Once we change that, you're automatically taking them out of a lot of the transfer decisions, a lot of them other decisions in terms of medical personnel, etc. That's what a traditional old school manager was involved in. We've got a head coach. All they want him to do is work on the training pitch and set up the team at the weekend. So now we're asking him to go outside his job description title, and the club won't let him do that.
Yeah. I think that's another massive part of the problem. It's like I think he's got a system in play where, to be honest, the person who the people who are really in the firing line are never going to be Ange's like set of coaches and the people, like they're all to blame. I don't think he's got a good enough group throughout the whole club, But so we're talking about who can steer this ship, right? And what you need, and you need a manager. You 100% need a manager to kind of like put the departments in the right place and to get the reports in and to make then qualified decisions. And I think what you can see is he's got no information coming into him telling him that this player is dead, he's in the red, this player's gone, So while I'm saying my opinion is what it is, but that's based on the fact of how he is managing the situation. And I don't think he's got what it takes to manage it well. So while I know all these things, and I totally agree to all these points, the bottom line is it still is falling on him. And so if it is falling on him, then it's his head. Obviously there's hundreds of reasons why every single thing happens the way it does, which every manager goes through. I think if teams that have got relegated before, who have had injury crisis, if they will be hearing a manager moan about injuries, and it will be driving them nuts because it's like, wait, you didn't think we had injury crisis? You didn't think we lose our best? Like everyone does go through that. But I think that on top of the type of club we are and like what he's been given, it's almost like sadistic. You know what I mean? To put him in the situations that he's in. So I totally get it. I totally say, look, and when I'm saying that there's ways to mitigate the re-recurring of injuries, I'm specifically talking directly to the physios, right? First. But he is the person who has to also get that information and go to the club and be like, look, we're getting killed here. Like, what is going on? So he ends up being the guy to blame because he's overseeing it. But then
but the thing is, the club have taken a decision, haven't they? They've changed the medical staff and they've made these decisions. So is that not the club saying they're not doing their job and they're the ones who are going to take accountability for this situation?
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to. I mean, I don't think they're going to take accountability for it.
No, they have. The medical staff have gone, so they have taken accountability. Then the accountability's been fallen on the medical team.
But then in the same breath, they say we're going to back Ange, and we're still sitting there waiting for signings.
No,
my
point is, the club are looking at this injury crisis at the moment, right? Yeah. And some people are blaming Ange, and people are blaming whatever. Is it whose fault is it? The club are saying the club have hired a new head of medical, or going to hire a new head of medical, a new conditioning, all these different things, right? So is that not the club saying our assessment of the situation is it's the medical team who need to take accountability?
Well, Ange was asked about that. And he said that was always going to happen. That was one of those things that was in line to happen. I didn't think his answer was true at all. But he was like...
But if that's the situation, then that's negligent from the club for leaving it until this point to do it and not before when...
But anyone knows when you change the medical staff and you bring in... That nothing's going to happen quickly. I mean, that's like a 3
Correct. It takes time. Yeah, it takes time to get implemented. Yeah, they probably do have to do a whole audit of the whole process of all the things they're doing.
A short... I don't think they're going, I think they might be doing it to kind of view the kind of what it looks like. We're trying everything. We're fire the medical team. No, that should have been done. Don't hire kids. Spend some money. Like you've got these machines, but you got to spend some money on the people, the humans, to still be able to feel someone's muscle, feel where the tear is. Like, is the scar tissue still there? Like you can feel it. Like a machine can't do that for you. So yeah, right. It's an absolute shit show.
Yep, that's life of being a Spurs fan. But look, David, I know you've got things to do, so appreciate your time as always, mate. Thanks for coming on the panel show. You're going to be seen on all the other Spurs programs probably today. So David's doing the rounds. Are you not tired of talking about Tottenham yet, David?
Do you know what? I'm absolutely fed up with it. Usually at times like this, I try to avoid it just because it does my brain in. It's the same conversations without any resolution going forward. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I don't know why people seem to be asking me to come on and stuff. So yeah, I'm on my own show at 6 o'clock. And then I'm on Chris Cowland's at 8 o'clock as well. So.
Everyone's desperate to see the flat cap. Come on,
So Dave,
we all want a bit of the flat cap.
Dave, you're Ange out, Sims Ange in, and I'm Ange. That's where we got to.
Look, you know, I just need wins. If we start winning games, you know, it'll get me back on board. I'm not one of these that, you know, if I'm winning games, I'm still going to continue on and with my narrative and stuff like that. At the end of the day, I just want, you know, I need evidence now to get back behind this project. But really appreciate the conversation. Though. It was a really good one. I really enjoyed that.
Enjoyed that.
Thank you very much, everyone. Smash the likes up for the boys here. You know, it really helps everyone out. And we'll speak to you again soon, lads.